Thank you very much. So about a year and a half ago, I was in Wales at a talk, the Do Lectures, which is fantastic. And I got the news that I was invited to speak at a TEDx event. My first time ever really doing public speaking, this being the second. And I was really quite nervous about this, preparing for this TEDx talk, and there was a great speaker at the Do Lectures. And I approached her and I said, would you please give me some coaching? Would you please help me? And her name was Babette Buster. And Babette and I went for a walk in Wales, and she started asking me about my life. And I said, oh, no, I want to talk about what I want to talk about. She's like, yeah, but I want to get to know you first, and you got to tell me about you. And I was like, well, I really want to talk about, academic approach to this thing that I'm studying. And she was like, okay, we'll get to that, but first tell me about you. And I really wanted her help, so I told her some stories about my life, and she asked me all these great questions, and then she asked me a question about what I had been up to recently, and I had been volunteering in Japan after the tsunami. And I told her this story of what happened in Japan this particular day, and I got shaky and nervous and teary. And she said, that's it. That's the story you have to tell at your TEDx talk. And I said, I can't. There's no way. I will embarrass myself and fall apart because the story is very emotional. And she said, no, that's the story. Trust me, I'm an expert. So I said, okay, I'll think about it. And the day of my TEDx talk came and went, and I could not tell my story. So it was a bit of a fail. And then Babette called me and said, how did it go? And I said, well, I couldn't do it. I chickened out. I was not brave. And she said, well, good news. I want to use your story in my book. I just got a book deal. And can I tell your story? I said, okay, that's fine. It's in print. It's out there, but at least I don't have to tell it. And so I thought that was it. And then I got a message from the lovely people here in Geneva at CreativeMornings, and they had read Babette's book. And they read my story. And they said, would you come talk about being brave? So ironically, this thing that I didn't want to deal with and how to be brave made me come here to see you today. And so I thought, I can't turn down the opportunity again, even though I'm not going to tell you the story. Sorry. I can't do it. Yeah, buy the book. It's a great book on learning how to tell the story of what it is you want to communicate. And I think that's a really important part of being brave, is learning how to communicate what you're passionate about, no matter what it is. And so what brought me here today, and what I am actually really excited to talk to you about, and what's given me a little boost, is that for the last 20 years or so of my life, I've been on this quest. And I've really, as it's been mentioned, I've been on this big adventure to go around the world and to know the world. And in knowing the world, to know myself a little bit more and my place in the world and what it is I'm here for. And what I'm really found out is that it's really, in the past 20 years, it's incredible, the world has halved poverty. We've halved extreme poverty. And if you've traveled, or if you know people who've been in extreme poverty, it's mind-boggling. And the craziest thing of all is that it is totally within our grasp, you, me, us, this generation, to end extreme poverty by 2030. And that is just so incredible to me that I had to come here and share this with you. And that's really kind of a big, bold statement, and it is certainly not going to be easy, but I thought I would share with you what I've learned on my quest, which is how to be a change agent. And there's 3 things that I've learned about being a change agent, and these 3 things are what is going to help us together in this generation to end extreme poverty. So I'll start with a little story about what it is to live in extreme poverty. I was working in Cambodia building houses for these very poor families alongside them. They were very, very entrepreneurial, hardworking people. Their current home was these terrible tin shacks, dirt floor, but worst of all, they lived on a dump, literally a dump outside of Phnom Penh in Cambodia. This massive landfill with a few big machines scooping the garbage in every single day. And this community of 21 families lived on the dump. Unbelievable, with dirt floors. They raised their families there, they slept there, everything they did there. And during the day, they would scavenge through the dump to look for shoes. So if you can imagine, thrown away shoes in outside of Cambodia, outside of Phnom Penh, they would find these shoes and they would dig through the garbage and they would take them back to their homes and they would clean them up and repair them the best they could, and then they would sell them. Extremely hardworking people doing the absolute best they could. And so an organization came along and found them and, thought we can't let them continue to live like this. Their children were getting very, very sick because they were living in toxic circumstances, bad, no access to clean water, and just extremely terrible conditions. And so a group came together and we got them some land, and they put their efforts and their hard work into building their own home alongside the volunteers. And that is great and wonderful, and to get them away from the toxicness. But what we did was we took away their livelihood, right? So there's no way to get to the dump anymore. It was more than about an hour away, and that's if you had a vehicle. So they would have been on foot or at best a bicycle. So they received some training, and they voted. They had discussions. They had a say in what they wanted to do with their future, and they wanted to get a bakery. This community came together and they wanted to bake bread. And so that's great also, but then how do they get supplies in? How do they get the flour in? How do they get the baked goods out? And so now we've moved them to a more rural area that's in theory better for them. We've created a better life for them, but we've taken away their livelihood, and so now we have the next set of issues to go through. These people were unbelievably hardworking and were willing to walk 8, 10, 12 kilometers to sell their baked goods to the next village. And what I found was what they were missing most of all, and what I've seen in my travels, is access to clean water, access to education, access to financial services. And so when we think about extreme poverty, we have to think about these complex issues not as solving one issue at a time. And I think a lot of us know that, particularly in Geneva. A lot of people work in humanitarian organizations or have come from opportunity to travel around the world. But I want to give you 3 kind of real things that we can do ourselves that are brave, that are bold, to really sort of take a look at how we in this generation can tackle these problems. The first one is you have to have vision. And there's an organization that is founded in New York City that we have a chapter here in Geneva called Acumen. And Acumen works in patient capital. They make loans, and they are very, very patient, and they're willing to take risks with social entrepreneurs who are doing something to serve humanity. And what Acumen says is that we need moral imagination, and that is to have the humility to see the world as it really is, in all the terrible things and the good things, but how it actually is, and to really wake up and understand what's happening. But then to have the audacity to imagine what it could be. And so vision is incredibly important. And for those of you who are social entrepreneurs, you know better than anybody that you need that vision. The second thing that you need to have is you need to be brave. And part of that is you need to speak up. You need to speak up when things are not fair, when people don't have equity, when there's not access. You need to speak up when you understand that 1.8 million children a year die from vaccine-preventable diseases, strictly around poverty. There is no other reason, and that is a matter of access. The other part about being brave is you need to know your story. You need to be able to communicate out to your circle, to your network, what it is that you're passionate about. And within the complex world of poverty, there's so many ways that people can plug in, whether it's becoming a social entrepreneur, whether it's supporting the social entrepreneur and helping them think through their ideas. It's whether it's traveling and learning and getting connected and understanding what the real needs of the people are. Bravery is a really interesting word, and I think that people feel very passionate about it, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But for me, the most important thing is to understand that the poorest of the poor, the one thing that they want is dignity. They don't want a hand up. They want the opportunity to help themselves. And so with the resources that we have and with technology that we have this one rare moment in time where we can actually do something. Previous generations, they couldn't, they did the best they could, but now it is really, really within our grasp, and that takes being brave, that takes being bold. The third thing that I want to talk about is community. And I think that this is also a really important piece of the puzzle. To build your community around you, to seek out other communities, to find ways to grow your community, to understand how you can tap into the resources of others and how you can really learn about the communities that you had hoped to serve. I think that is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. When I'm in my travels and I'm thinking about the communities that I meet, and I think about how I can help them, the most important thing I think I can do is to understand how their lives are and what it is that they need. I've seen Western solutions applied to problems in the developing world time and time again, and they're really just a Band-Aid, and they don't work over the long term often. What I think that the world is looking for is the same things that we have: access, dignity, fairness, equality, education. And I hope that when you go back into your workday later on today, that you think about the business that you're in and how you can help grow that, whether it's grow that to serve humanity, whether that is a product or a solution or an idea that you want to kind of throw around with some friends. Because the world needs your ideas. It needs innovation. Aid and aid dependency are a very controversial topic, but what I've learned in being a change agent is that aid is very important, the right aid, and development aid, where we can help the others have this access that I'm talking about, I think is the most important aid. For people that are recovering from disaster, and just have a pause for a moment to think about the Philippines, what they're going to need is the opportunity to rebuild their lives. They're going to need loans. And in many of these communities, they're not even allowed access to a savings account or the simple loans that we all have access to. So by becoming a lender in microfinance, if you're interested in that, not a gift, but an actual loan, is a great way to really become a change agent, to really invest in somebody and help them grow their own business and help them lift themselves out of poverty. I think is a really important thing that we can do as a real actionable item today. So I want to just thank everybody for coming. It's really means a lot to me to share this message. I have a quick little video that I want to share. I want to thank the organizers of the microfinance organization that gave me the permission to show that fabulous video. I think it really sums up what I'm trying to impart, and that I hope to challenge you all to become change agents and to, you know, have that vision, to be brave, and to find your community. Thanks so much. I guess I take questions.
Questions? If we have any questions, we have a mic here, so I'm going to run around.
Hi, DJ. Thanks a lot for the talk. Could you tell us a bit more about Kiva and the way it works? Because I know that you're involved in that organization as well. And if it's the only one that's really the best one, I mean, the best organization out there to invest in for social entrepreneurship, or if there's other ones that you could maybe mention as well.
Sure, thanks, Greg. So Kiva is a really unique person-to-person microfinance lending platform where anybody can go on their computer and make a loan to a poor entrepreneur in the world. And the crazy thing about it is that somebody in Zimbabwe can get on their computer and make a loan to somebody in the United States, because we do have poor people in the United States. I think Kiva is a phenomenal organization. When I started out on my quest, I looked around at where I could get educated. And Kiva has a fellows program where you go into the field and you work for about 5 months, where they choose to send you. And I was sent to the former Soviet, to Georgia, where I learned to love the former Soviet Union and everything about Georgia. But Kiva is, to me and to my mind, one of the most excellent ways not only to teach yourself about how hardworking the entrepreneurial poor are, but it is a loan. It is not a gift. You take the risk. I personally have done somewhere around 20 loans, and I've had 2 losses. One was a woman in South Sudan who wanted to borrow money to start a charcoal business, to sell charcoal on the side of the road. Talk about a hard worker. And I lost 26 cents in the currency exchange. The second loan that I lost on was actually a loan in the United States. And this woman just defaulted. But the rest of my loans have all been paid back, and I've been able to either take that money out or recycle that money and as I'm paid back and reloan it again. So there are lots of microfinance institutions. Microfinance is not a silver bullet. It's not perfect, but in my experience, it is a wonderful, wonderful way to help people help themselves. Thanks for your question.
In your experience, what prevents people from speaking up?
That's a great question. I can tell you why I didn't speak up in the past. I work right now for the Gavi Alliance, which is the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. It's a secretariat between the World Bank, UNICEF, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the WHO, the World Health Organization. And I honestly have a lot of friends who don't believe in vaccines, who live in the Western world, who have the luxury of choice. And I didn't want to make my friends mad, and I didn't want to be questioned on the data, to be honest. But what I've learned is that vaccines save lives. And the reason why people in the Western world can say that they don't believe in vaccines is because they have the luxury of choice. If their child gets diarrhea, they can go to the hospital, and they most likely will be fine. Same with measles, and so on and so on. But if you're in India or Bangladesh and your child gets diarrhea or measles, they might go blind or they might die. So for me, I think speaking up is a matter of knowing, being passionate enough to be able to defend yourself and feeling vulnerable, but also being not sure about the facts. Thanks.
Any other?
DJ, thank you for a wonderful talk, and you seem very, very passionate, especially about microfinance. Did you have personally a defining moment in your life that you decided you wanted to dedicate a good portion of your life to this kind of work?
Yes. Thanks, Jason. As part of my quest, I had a corporate job. I actually used to work in software and in New York City. I had a great job, actually. with nice people, had no unhappiness at work. But in my spare time, I would do volunteer projects, building houses around the world, which is a wonderful and very happy experience. But then Haiti happened, the earthquake, and I felt called to go. And then they had 3 hurricanes, and I really felt like I had to go. And so I found another organization that did disaster relief. And I went, and I got on the plane in New York City at 8 o'clock in the morning. And by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was on the ground working. And it really blew my mind that there was so much devastation and poverty and massive human suffering on a scale that, frankly, it's even hard to talk about, that was so close to home. And I started to think about that more and more. And eventually I just decided that I wanted to understand why Haiti was in the state that it was, because the earthquake was bad, the 3 hurricanes were terrible, but then cholera came. And then one day when I was working in Haiti, I was sent outside of the village I was working in, across Haiti, over the mountains, and there were no trees. There was no trees in Haiti. And that had nothing to do with the earthquake or the hurricane or the cholera. Although it didn't help spread cholera because when the rains came, there was no trees to hold anything in. And so I wanted to understand why all the billions of dollars of aid that had been poured into Haiti before the earthquake and every other tragedy hadn't helped Haiti, and in fact, in my opinion, had made it worse. And so that was the moment that I decided that I had to get educated, and that's part of that vision. And then I suppose quitting my job and going to be an unpaid microfinance worker in the former Soviet Union was sort of brave. And here I've built my community. So thank you, Jason.
Hi, DJ. I'm also from America. You touched on something interesting, billions of dollars that are given to these, organizations that don't get to the people in need. You're talking about building a community. That must be very frustrating, and I find that myself, that you put money in a pool, and Haiti is a perfect example of where billions of dollars and people are still living in their tin huts without access to water, education. How do you feel that could change with this community building?
Great question, thank you. Well, first of all, I never wanted to work for a UN agency. It was never, ever my goal. In fact, I had this anti-establishment sort of mentality. I wanted to bring business solutions to these problems that I found. And I looked for a role, and to try and find less bureaucracy, less, waste. And I ended up at this organization that was created actually because they were frustrated that these really inexpensive, in many ways, vaccines weren't getting to the people. And so they took a part of the businesses out of UNICEF and WHO and the World Bank to create something completely new. And I think business acumen and serving people with dignity, not telling them what the solution to their problem is really the answer. And these women dancing in Uganda, right? That's such a great thing. They're living in this rural village. They didn't say I want an Xbox. They didn't say I want a BMW or a chalet in the Alps. What they want is what we want on the most basic human level. And I think if we think about dignity first and foremost, and asking people what they need and collaborating with them, if you look at the graphs, I was going to bore you guys with a bunch of slides and graphs and go all stats nerd on you. But what's going to really get us to the end of that, ending extreme poverty in 2030, is that at the community level, these women in Uganda have to have entrepreneurial opportunity. And with that, everything will rise. So if you can support the entrepreneurial poor through microfinance or creating something yourself, that is actually what the UN, what the WHO, what Gates Foundation, what every big organization is actually now begging for. They're begging for business innovation to come in, to be part of the solution. I could go on and on, but I think that if I can get one thing across to you guys, it's that innovation is such the spark that is needed, and the world is crying out for it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Jan, and just a quick question about this education and innovation. So what are the best platforms or places to understand what are the challenges and how everyone can help without spending I don't know years in different projects?
Thank you. That's a great question. I have a little quote here. Technology is making it harder to ignore poverty and suffering even half a planet away. But technology is giving us the opportunity to scale innovation and scale our ideas. There are a lot of communities now that are coming up around social entrepreneur. There's a lot of investment opportunity. People are looking for investment. Organizations are starting to really have a real corporate social responsibility program, not just to check the box. Like, they're really looking at how they can innovate. For example, I'm working in Geneva with this local community called Geneva Plus Acumen. And what we do is we try and support social entrepreneurship through education, through building community networks to help people who have ideas to scale those ideas up and to put them in touch with other organizations, like Ashoka is a great one, who funds social entrepreneurs. So those are just two ideas, but thank you. Does that answer your question? Well, great question. I mean, I think if you were to go to Kiva, for example, kiva.org, it's a microfinance lending platform, you can just take a look at what people are wanting to borrow money for. So you can see the reality of what most people are working in agriculture. So they want to borrow money for a cow. They want to borrow money for a tractor. They maybe want to borrow money for tomato seeds. There are a lot of ways to get educated online. TED Talks are great. CreativeMornings, I think, are great. Do lectures. Coming to the Geneva Plus Acumen events, you can learn about what the needs are. I think travel is a wonderful way to get out there if you really get into the community. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your speech. My question is short. In your experience, what's the main and the first difficulty you have to fight when you launch a project as social entrepreneur in that areas? Thank you.
Great question. I think, to be a social entrepreneur is to be very, very brave. You have to take risk. You're either doing it on the side, or you've quit your job and you've decided to develop a solution or a product, and that is really consuming if it's going to be successful. So I think taking that first bold step of committing to your idea and committing to develop your idea to serve humanity is the first and most important thing.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to bounce back on your question. There's actually a website called endignorance.org, and it's actually a really good website in which it's a platform in which organizations and just individuals can go on, and if it's you want to get involved but you don't know how, and it also provides lots of different solutions, including microfinance opportunities.
That's great. There's the Global Citizen as well. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there.
There's lots of stuff
If you're curious, there's definitely an opportunity to learn.
Anyone else? Yeah, we do. Okay, I think it's going to be one of our last questions.
It's just a tiny question, really. I just wondered how the people that are in need and want these loans actually find out about the loan system that you're talking about.
Good question. So there are on-the-ground microfinance institutions, which are sort of like banks, but they often mostly don't have savings programs because of regulatory issues. So they have a whole sort of fleet of loan officers who go out into the field and they find clients, and they think of them as clients, and they tell them about their loan products and educate them and help them understand what their opportunities are. And it's very, very competitive in urban areas. There's lots of MFIs and lots of loan officers, and it's fairly easy to get capital in the bigger cities. But it's the rural areas that's very, very hard to reach. And then, of course, we have the unscrupulous, extremely high interest rates, things like that, that the very, very rural poor are at risk of. But the loan officers are out there. There's a lot of loan officers working out there. Thank you.
All right, I think we are arriving to the end. So I would like to thank everybody for coming today, this morning. We're going to collect all the websites and post them on our Facebook and on the page of Creative Mornings. So if somebody feels like to get involved into whatever kind of organization, they're going to be welcome to do so. But now I'm just going to invite you to take some more coffees, stay around, talk, exchange, talk with the DJ if you want to, and have a great morning.
Thank you,
And,
everybody.
and of course, yeah, don't forget the photo booth that it's in the corner there. The question is, who is the bravest person that you know? Or what is the bravest thing that you did in your life? And you're going to have like a sheet of paper written, yeah, you're going to write the stuff on it and take the picture of it. So, yeah, have a great morning. Bye.